Good morning. Welcome to Tarot Today. My name is Adrien and I'm here with.
Delphine.
Hi, Delphine. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How about you? Are you enjoying the
Um,
summer?
I, yes, I am enjoying the summer. I just came back from a lot of traveling. I just ran a retreat in Greece and I was working in festivals and so I'm tanned, but some people are thinking that I've been on holiday, but I've been enjoying the sea, but I've been working hard.
Aw,
Yeah, it's really hot here. Are you enjoying your summer? I was gonna say
oh my
holiday.
God. Yes. I mean, I went to Porto, I went to Barcelona, I went to Mallorca. Like, I've been on a boat, like having the time of my life. But
Girl,
that
that
being,
sounds fabulous.
I know, right? But that being said, obviously we haven't recorded in a couple of weeks because you have been busy working and I've been busy holidaying, I suppose. Um, but yeah, like, what are we talking about today, Adrian?
I think today we're gonna keep going. So we left it off last time with the court cards and the suit of swords, and I think today we need to get back into this groove of the court cards. But let's talk about the wands, right? The wands are the fire, which is very topical because it's summer and it's hot and the sun is very present and so yes, the court cards, four cards, right? We can see if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Delphine showing us the cards here. Uh, and those four cards represents four people, or they can also represent four attitudes, or four attitudes to embrace, or maybe to avoid sometimes, or it depends on the reading, the way it comes up. It can be very contextual, right? Sometimes this is why court cards are a bit tricky. We can see them as actual people, as aspects of people, or attitudes to embrace. Um, and they're fire, right? It's all about
Hmm.
fire, all about action, creativity, energy, sexual energy, doing something. And uh, Delphine works a bit more with the Smith-Waite tarot, and I work usually more with the Marseille tarot. And in the Marseille tarot, there's something that we really work with, which is the line of sight, looking where the people are, where the figures are looking towards. And in the Marseille tarot, all four figures are looking towards the right, towards the future. The future. They're very active. It's a very active suit, right? The suit of fire. So let me just show you quickly for the YouTube people. You see, they all look in towards the right. They look towards the future. They're all very active. And so they're not just fire, right? Because I think we've talked about the fact that each character, each person is associated with an element as well. So the page is associated with the element of earth, right? The knight is associated with the element of air. The queen is associated with the element of water, and the king is fire. So when we look at these cards, we can already have some ideas um, into how we're going to interpret these. Because with if we look at the King of Wands, we have fire of fire. This is the most fiery court card you can find, right? And so it's interesting to try to put together these elements to see how they'll be working together. For instance, the knight is, oh no, you have the page in your hand. The page would be earth or fire, right? And the knight will be air or fire, and the queen will be water or fire, right? So it's interesting to find out how we can associate them, right? The page is also the beginner, the learner, the knight moves things, the queen as the inner mastery, and the king as the outer mastery. What would you say, Daphne? I've been talking a lot.
No, no, you're fine. I think that you introduced it really well. Like, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, the thing is that obviously, like many people know that it's like the court cards are like supposed to represent people, right? They're the people in our lives, they're the facets of our psyche, but then of course sometimes they can just like represent energies as well. And as you already wonderfully said, this is why it gets so confusing with court cards, right? But basically, when we break it down to kind of the elemental correspondence, so earth of fire for the page, and air of fire for the knight, and whatever, so on and so forth. It's helpful to do this because it's like once you have an elemental understanding of each court card, it makes it a lot more flexible to interpret. Because the thing is that if we get into fixed ideas of just like these certain personalities, we tend to just assign like, oh, the Queen of Wands is like, I don't know, Lady Gaga or something, when in reality it's kind of like, the Queen of Wands. I mean, it's a prototype that can fit onto so many different kinds of personalities and it can express itself in so many different ways. And so that's why this elemental correspondence is helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so what else can we say? What
I
can
think I think it I think it might also just be helpful to just like speak about the elements a little bit more. Like, I mean, I know that it's like we already know that, earth is grounding and, water is like flowing and it's about the emotions. But it's like, I mean, I almost wonder if we can explain the elements in just like a way that's a little bit easier to, not easier to understand, because I think we have made it easy, but maybe just in a way that provides a little bit more depth.
yeah, that provides a little bit of grounding.
Yeah,
So
grounding.
grounding Earth.
Earth. Okay. We need some earth. So I'll let you start.
So the earth element is really is where I want to say that uh um kabbalistically is where all the elements find themselves, how we can ground all the elements in earth, and everything can also start from there, because the if we look at the page, is earth of fire, right, is at the lowest position, he's starting, he's learning. So the earth aspect is going to be a very dense element, right? And if you think about the earth of fire, this is where you kind of put your fire so it can start burning, right? So the the page of fire would be the initiation of an action, right? This is how
Yeah.
this is how I would use the elements to understand the chord cards.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree.
And fire spreads, fire moves, fire is exciting, right? So I always feel like with the page of wands, there is an enthusiasm, to begin something, you know.
hmm And it's also interesting, right? Because it's like we go from like Earth of Fire, which is the page, which is just, I mean, as you said, it's kind of like that little bit of like kindling, right? Like maybe it's like a campfire, but then all of a sudden it's like when we get to like Air of Fire with the night, it's like, I mean, we all know, well, I don't know, I was taught in school that it's like, if we add air to fire, it grows, it turns into a bigger inferno, right? So it's almost like, and then that takes us into the night, which is about pursuit or movement, right? So it's like, I mean, that fire, that campfire gets bigger. And then all of a sudden it's like we have like fire of water. And although at the face of it, it might seem that these are two opposing forces, but I completely disagree because, when we have fire and when we have water, it can create steam, which also just kind of like, increases in this intensity. And then eventually we reach the king, which is fire of fire, which is just this inferno, right? It's like, I mean, it's going, it's a wildfire, not necessarily unchecked, but like just kind of like in terms of like really just understanding the energy of each of the wands court cards.
Yeah,
It's like,
absolutely. And if you think about it, there are many things that these elements can do together. So if you take the air of fire, um, if there's just enough air, the fire will grow. But if there's too much air, when you blow on a candle, you're just gonna kill the fire, right? So I think it's this idea of how, so now we fall into the reversed, maybe the reverse meaning. Delphine is currently teaching a course, or she finished teaching a course on the reversals at Treadwell's, which I'm sure is fabulous. I wish I could be there to learn a few things. But think about all these cards. Are they perfectly balanced within themselves to be able to create or bring about what they want? Or is there a little bit too much air within the fire, or not enough air within the fire, and therefore the fire cannot grow, type of thing. Same thing for the queen, if the fire can create steam with water, or we can boil the water down to find the essence of things, right? Or if there is too much water, she won't be in touch with her emotions and intuition anymore, right? Or if there is too much water, too much emotions, maybe that could kill the fire as well. No? What do you think, Delphine?
No, I mean, I think that's like a beautiful way to put it. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's like if we add too much fire, then yeah, perhaps like all of the water just boils away or we're left with nothing. Or, or perhaps if we have too much water, then it's like, I mean, the fire just gets put out entirely. And so it is about understanding how the court cards are aspected. And I think that this is like where card combinations really come into play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I mean, this is usually the question that people have. It's just like, okay, so if the court cards can mean so many different things, how do we actually understand what this court card is trying to communicate? And what I would say, or what I always teach my students, and I'd be interested to see how you sort of deal with this issue. But for me, it's like, I mean, it's about the cards that are surrounding the page, the knight, the queen, or the king. So, like, for example, it's like, I mean, should we get into examples, or perhaps I should let you explain your method
Sure, sure.
first?
No, go with an example because I think it'll be interesting to see how you do it, and because it's all about how the cards are aspected,
Yeah, like I
where
mean,
they
so
come
if
from and where they're going.
Yeah, so if we contextualize the whatever card I'm about to pull, let's say that I'm asking a question, right? So let's say that how is my safari in Namibia going to go? Okay, that's our question. That is our question. How will my safari trip in Namibia go? And let's say that I pull the Knight of Wands, and let's say that I pull the moon.
Okay.
And so already it's like, I mean, there's a lot of confusion, there's bewilderment, but also I see the moon to be the card of the wilderness. I see it to be like the card of the unconscious. And then, like, obviously, we have air, fire here, right? So it's almost like it could be that it's like it could be that I'm just kind of running away with myself with like a bunch of kind of like possibilities, or just kind of like, fabricating just, 20 different scenarios of how something could go,
Yeah.
because I'm feeling ungrounded and a little bit anxious. And so if I were to clarify that further, three of swords. I mean, so it's like, I mean, maybe it's just that like I'm trying to like, trailblaze on through the uncertainty of maybe emotional pain that I'm feeling because I'm going on a safari to Namibia because I actually just went through a terrible breakup.
So trying to escape something, you could say
So
here. Mhm.
trying to escape something, I think that's even better.
And
How
then
would you,
all of a sudden we
sorry,
have
go on.
the reason. Well, hold on. Why are you trying to go into the safari? What is going on? You're
Okay.
escaping. You're not facing. The proper problems that you might have.
Yeah. Why am I going to the safari in Namibia? Okay. Well, the chariot is just saying, well, I'm going. But anyway,
When are you going on this safari? And why am I not coming with you?
I
From these cards, it sounds like you're gonna need support. So fine, I'll start packing my bag.
that is really funny.
The way I work with the core cards in the Marseille tradition, the line of sight is very important. So, for instance, if the queen the queen is the Queen of Wands is somebody that's actively doing something, right? She's very independent and she's actively uh, um, uh, uh, taking something on. She's very independent. And for example, here, if the queen is looking at the temperance card, there's a conversation happening between the two, right? And the way I'll be seeing this is that maybe the queen of wands talking to the temperance they're having a very kind conversation here. And maybe the queen of wands is seeking for some sort of I'm going to say tempering, maybe a calmer aspect, because the temperance is showing us
Yeah,
the
harmony, healing.
water, some sense of the healing. And so maybe we could say that here, if the queen is looking to have a chat with temperance, that maybe she had a little bit too much fire and she's trying to understand her emotions a little bit. She burnt herself a little
Hmm.
bit too much here. That's an
Hmm.
example on how I would read it, right?
Yeah.
then, but if they don't look at each other and the Queen of Wands is turning her back onto the Temperance card, you could say that actually the Queen of Wands is a very independent, she's very in charge of her fire, and she's not really interested in making things agreeable, right? She's quite ready to charge forward. And if this would be an advice that you give somebody, it would be like, well, don't try to maybe temper your language too much or your actions. Go for it. Believe in what you need to do, right? And then you want to see if what is the other card on the other side, that might be coming out. Um, so you really have to see the direction and what the core cards are looking at, you know, and what they are looking at will, the way they're being aspected, will give you a good indication on how to read them, what's coming before, what's coming after, right? But this is a very Marseille technique, a way of looking at the figures in the Marseille Tarot, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I think it
No,
does.
it completely makes sense. And actually, like, I mean, the directional cues is like something that, or I mean, line of sight, as you say, which I think is actually a better way of explaining it. But I always teach that as well, like specifically also with the Rider Waite, just because like we have so many other characters. Like, what is the figure in the Two of Wands looking at? It
Yeah.
gives you so much. It gives you so much more depth in a reading.
Mhm.
Um, but I just absolutely agree with you. I love that.
No, it's a wonderful way because then you step away from the big esoteric meanings of each card, and sometimes you just look at the cards in the way as if you were looking a comic book, right?
Exactly. Like I always tell people, it's kind of just like it. Yeah, it's just like reading a story or like reading a book or something. And the thing is that of course it's important to know like what each card actually means and to not stray too far away from that. But then like we add other elements in like numerology and color and astrology and planetary associations and line of sight and all of these other things. And then all of a sudden you have all of these tools in your toolkit that enable you to actually like cohesively read what your cards are able trying to tell you.
Absolutely. And often I hear people say, "Oh, the best book on tarot are not books on tarot. They're books about how you reflect about life and how you can identify,
Yeah.
how you can bring this knowledge into the tarot." And I really do invite people when you're learning how to read tarot to read books that are not necessarily about tarot, but you also read graphic novels, because
Yeah.
to be able to look at images and get so much information out of images, this is really what the art of tarot is about. And like in the wands, for example, there's something very active, there's a bit real action that's happening. The king of wands is a leader. He's in the Marseille Tarot, we have the wands are being sort of shaped up into a more refined way as they go through the suits or through the characters, right? The page of wands got a wand that's very big, and it's so big it can't even yield it. And it's the same thing in the Smith Waite. He's the wand is on the floor and he's looking at the wand, he's discovering the wand, right? And the wand can be really seen as maybe the sexual energy, as well,
Hmm.
or the work, or the action. You're taking the first step and you're learning how to, and you're trying to really figure out how you're going to do this. And when we get to the king, the wand is in the Smith weight is less obvious, but in the Marseille, the wand is very shaped into something very intricate and very precise, and it has at the very end, he has a point, right? So there's something very precise that's come out of the wand, right? It's a very directed energy. And the King of Wands, we often say that he's a leader, he's a powerful leader. But think about it. If the fire burns too much, fire, it will burn everything. And we are seeing nowadays, a, a number of world leaders which have no problem burning everything. And
To
that
the ground.
yeah, burning everything to the ground, and that is the shadow aspect of the King of Wands. And if the King of Wands is aspected with a devil, a reversed emperor, or that kind of cards, then you could say that this is the shadow aspect of the King of Wands, right? You could see that this is a leader which doesn't really think about his people, right? A good leader should lead for the people, not for power of themselves, right?
Mhm,
I don't
mhm.
want to get political, but
Oh my God, it's our favorite thing. You and I always almost get political and then we say, oh, we're going to rein it back. But yeah, yes, yes, we are talking about Trump. We are talking about Trump, everybody. Yeah, but anyway, uh no, absolutely. And I think it is interesting, isn't it? It's no, no, I think I'm trying to get political. Okay, I'm just gonna stop. You take it, Adrian, you take it on. Carry us forward.
No, I think we are there. I think we are there. What is important to know as well with these with the court cards, I find, is that they're not gender specific, right?
Yes,
I think
yes. And I love that you've explained this previously, and it's like, and I teach this in my courses as well, but it's like, I mean, feminine energy is energy that's directed internally. So it's like, I mean, also just like water, fire. It's like, when I think of the Queen of Wands, I actually usually interpret her as like a woman going through a transformation because it's like, I mean, of course, like, all of us, like, I mean, through different stages of our life or situations or whatever, we will reach a greater understanding about ourselves. So whenever the Queen of Wands appears, it's almost like there's a deeper sense of self that is being reached. That is one way that I always interpret her. Or even like when it comes to, yeah, fire, so with the King of Wands, like that fire energy being directed externally. It's like, I mean, okay, I'm going after the job opportunity, I'm going after the safari in Namibia, I'm going after this or I'm going after that. But one thing that I also really like to differentiate between is with the page. A lot of people have trouble with pages, I think, and that's because it's like, I mean, they're an energy, but it's like, I mean, they're not necessarily a fully fleshed out personality, which is why if we were to give them an age range, we would, we would say that they're a child. But ultimately, it's like, I mean, with pages, it's like, are we actually doing something, or like, is something actually being enacted? I would say that with a page, it's exploratory energy. It's like, I mean, as far as actions are concerned, actions are not necessarily being taken yet, or if they are, they're very tentative. So maybe that's like a message, or maybe that's an invitation, or maybe that's an email, or maybe that's a piece of information, or maybe that's a contract, or maybe that's a business card. It feels like there's some kind of opening. Similar to an ace, but it feels like with a knight, it's like once we get to a knight, that's when we see the movement. That's when something is actually happening. And I think that this is also very interesting with court cards as well, of just like kind of understanding their boundaries. Where
Yeah.
do they begin? Where do they end? Especially in terms of movement. Because I think that one thing that I usually do when I lay out a set of cards is I'm trying to understand where is the movement, where is the blockage, and court cards are very helpful for that, especially
Mhm.
pages and knights. And so, we want to, and I assume that you use numerology for that, which I do as well to some extent, but that's more of a Marseille um, sort of tool that people use. But yeah, I'll let you
Yeah.
comment.
So my question to you is, because I know the answer, but I feel like our listeners are going to be wondering after what you just said. What is the difference between a page and an ace?
So it's like, I mean, a page actually has a personality, right? So it's like, I mean, the thing is that like an ace is just a seed,
Hmm.
but then it's like, like a page is almost like there's almost like an action behind it, if that makes sense. There's an action behind the ace, or there's sort of like a how do I phrase this? There's like the ace just exists, but it's like when the page shows up, there's this feeling of doing something, or oh, I'm not explaining this well. I'm not explaining this
But
well.
I
Some
think we have to remember that the court cards are represented by people. They are people, and
Yeah,
I think this is the difference, right? The page. I think you hit it on the head. You hit the nail on the head when you said that the page there's an action because it's a person, and the
yeah,
aces are seeds. They are potential, right? You can plant the ace of pentacle in the ground, but if you don't give it water and proper light, it will never grow. Whereas,
yeah,
the page of wands starts something. There's enthusiasm. There's it's this it's already a little bit further on than the ace, I would say. You know, if
Yeah.
there's a sense of agency there, you know, because the ace kind of comes out of nowhere, I would say.
Yeah, the ace just appears, right? And that's how they're all represented, at least in the writer way
Mhm.
as well. They just come out of nowhere. It's like, I mean, through a
Mhm.
hand being offered through the sky.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but the page, I suppose, does interact with that energy a little bit more, hence giving it an action. I think you just helped me articulate that. This is the funny thing with tarot, is that it's like, I mean, we are putting words to vibes, right? And so sometimes it's sometimes even I lose the words for it, even though I do this all the time.
Well, I think we have to remember that tarot is a visual language. And
Yes.
I had a student in my retreat who shall not be named, but I'm sure when he listens to this recording, he will know that I'm talking about him. And he said to me, "Well, I want to learn something else." And I said, "Well, learn how to read for people." "Oh, no, 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 I don't want to do that." I was like, "Well, reading tarot is one thing when you turn over the cards and you get the message, because when you become good at tarot, you can get the message in a second. You look at the cards and you get it, right? But I think the tricky bit can is to then be able to articulate the messages that you're seeing in the cards to people, right? And I think that is also a skill that has to be developed with tarot, right? And when you say, "Oh, you've just sometimes I lose my words," and I totally get it because the images tap straight into your the back of your mind, right? And it's not necessarily in the consciousness anymore, it's beyond that, right? And so sometimes the tricky aspect of tarot is to articulate and to find the words that are going to describe the story you're seeing in front of you, you know? Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like, I mean, it is a visual language. And yeah, and it's interesting as well, right? Because it's like when we're teaching it, obviously, like when we're speaking about it, we're going to left brain because it's like we're trying to communicate an idea of just kind of the system and how to use it and et cetera and et cetera. But point is that like, I mean, when we're actually reading tarot, when you're actually engaging with the cards, it's a right brain activity and you go into that other side.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's the conceptual aspect. Oh, this could mean this could mean that. But then after you have to ground it into a question, an answer, an advice, and how you move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else you think we can say about the quote cards of the Wand family?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's easy for people to kind of go online and, you know, find a bunch of different examples of sort of like the Queen of Wands and the King of Wands and even the Knight and sort of their different personalities and how they'll behave in certain scenarios. I know that in my classes, what I like to do is I like everybody to pick out a court card and then I make them all do role play and I give them like crazy scenarios. Like I'm like, okay, everybody's at a funeral. You're at the buffet and you meet this person. How do you greet them and what do you say? And like you know and like just kind of like forcing people to sort of embody them but yeah, like I mean, I think ultimately what's a lot more helpful though than just kind of like, you know, memorizing sort of like
Hmm.
a bunch of different people that could relate to each court card
Yeah.
is really understanding kind of like the elemental makeup behind it, because then all of a sudden it's like you actually have this useful tool that can, you know, just
Yeah.
be transposed onto different situations as we've already discussed.
Well, the other way we can think about it is that if the wands are fire, and you're thinking about personality, think about a fire sign. You have either Leo, Sagittarius, Aries, right? Think about fire signs and then add the other element, right? So you have a fire sign, but that's that has a lot of earth in it, or that has a lot of air, or that has a lot of water or fire, right? So the King of Wands, I would say, is a very strong Leo, right? It would have to be the King of Fire, right? So think about how all these things might work, yeah, for example, the Queen of Wands might be, she might be, I don't know, a Sagittarius with a heavy Cancer aspect.
I often show up as the Queen of Wands, and I'm a Sagittarius rising with a lot of water.
Here you go. Here you go. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
am
yeah.
making sense, sometimes.
Yeah, you are making sense. Yeah, no.
So maybe listeners, think about it. Where is your sun, right? And where is your ascendant, your rising, or where is your moon? Because the moon will talk also about your instinct. And so, I mean, of course, this is not arbitrary and this is not an exact science, but maybe try to feel or try to see which sort of core cards you really associate yourselves with. I
Hmm.
think, I mean, in the Crowley system, I'm very much a knight of swords, right? But I feel like I'm be more inclined to be a knight of cups or a king of cups, you know, just because I'm a sun Aquarius, and there's a lot of air, but at the same time my moon is in Cancer, so I do have these different aspects, right?
Hmm.
Of course, my wish is to be a king of pentacles, so I can be called sugar daddy, but but not quite yet. Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
That's so funny because in my minor slides, I have the King of Pentacles listed as the ultimate daddy. So it's like, yeah, it's like yeah, it's like the King of Pentacles, the ultimate daddy.
The
It's
ultimate
really
daddy.
funny.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. Cool. All right, Delphine. Well, it was lovely chatting to you again today. Check out our website. Delphine's got you can find her on Instagram. You
Delphine Delamar.
Delphine Delamar, and you can also find me on Instagram and everywhere. And we'll see you guys next week for a new episode of Tarot Today.
See you guys next week. Bye, Adrian.
Bye bye.